Commander Taeyong Park stood at the wide observation window, watching Earth's first sunrise after the disaster. His uniform, pressed and perfect yesterday for humanity's historic meeting with the Galactic Council, now hung wrinkled on his tired frame. The bags under his eyes told the story of a sleepless night. 12 hours ago, he'd been filled with hope. Now that hope had been replaced by dread. "Commander, you need to see this," called Science Director Ju Kim, her voice tight with tension. She gestured to the large display screen on the command center wall. Taeyong turned from the window. The screen showed satellite imagery of massive alien vessels moving into position around Earth. They were unlike the diplomatic ship that had first approached Earth 3 months ago. These were clearly warships, their angular designs bristling with what could only be weapon systems. "How many?" he asked. 37 capital ships detected so far," Chu replied, her fingers flying across her tablet. More appearing by the minute. Taeyong closed his eyes briefly. Yesterday's meeting should have been the beginning of Earth's entry into the galactic community. The Galactic Council representatives had arrived with promises of knowledge and technology, claiming they sought peaceful relations with all sentient species. But during the negotiations, something had changed. The Council representatives had grown increasingly uncomfortable as Earth's delegation explained human history, culture, and scientific achievements. When they showed the aliens humanity's rapid technological advancement over the past century, the mood in the room had shifted dramatically. "They think we're dangerous," Ju said, echoing his thoughts. "They called us unpredictably aggressive and evolutionarily unstable. One of them actually seemed frightened of us." Taeyong nodded grimly. They expected to find a young, malleable species they could guide. Instead, they found humans, creative, stubborn, and apparently terrifying to them. A young officer burst into the command center, breathing hard. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the largest vessel. It's being broadcast globally on all frequencies." The main screen flickered, and the image of an alien appeared. It belonged to the same species as the Council representatives, tall, with pale blue skin and 4 arms. Its large eyes reflected light in an unsettling way. "People of Earth," the alien began, its translator converting its complex language into flat, emotionless English. "The Galactic Council has determined that your species represents an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. Your rapid technological advancement, combined with your biological predisposition toward aggression, makes your integration into galactic society impossible." Taeyong felt the blood drain from his face. Around him, the command center staff watched in stunned silence. "You are hereby presented with 2 options," the alien continued. "Surrender your planetary sovereignty to Council oversight, with significant technological restrictions and population controls to be implemented immediately, or refuse and face immediate military action." The alien's large eyes seemed to stare directly at Taeyong. "You have 6 Earth hours to communicate your decision. Any military action on your part will be considered a declaration of war." The screen went dark. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then the room erupted in panicked voices. "Silence!" Taeyong shouted, bringing order back to the command center. "Contact the United Nations Security Council and all major military powers. Priority code midnight. We need a global response. And we need it now." Within an hour, Taeyong found himself in a hastily arranged video conference with military leaders from around the world. Faces grim, they assessed Earth's options. "We have no defense against their technology," said General Wei from China. "Our most advanced weapons would be useless against ships that can cross interstellar space." "But surrender is unacceptable," countered Admiral Rodriguez from the United States. "These population controls they mention, it sounds like they plan to treat us like animals." Taeyong looked at his tablet, where reports were flooding in. Panic was spreading globally as news of the ultimatum reached the public. Religious leaders were calling it the end times. Stock markets had crashed. In some cities, riots had already broken out. "We need more time," he said firmly. We need to communicate, to make them understand we're not a threat to them. A new face appeared on the conference call. President Choi of South Korea, looking tired but determined. Commander Park, we're appointing you as Earth's chief negotiator in this crisis. Your experience with the initial contact makes you our best option. Taeyong felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Madam President, I'm not sure. None of us are sure of anything right now, President Choi interrupted. But we need someone to speak for humanity, and you're it. Try to buy us time. With 3 hours remaining in the ultimatum, Taeyong sat before a global broadcast system, attempting to open communication with the alien fleet. Beside him, Ju adjusted the transmission settings. They're responding, she said, surprise evident in her voice. The alien face appeared again, different from the first one but of the same species. Human representative, the Council's decision is final. Your attempts to delay are noted, and will not succeed. Taeyong leaned forward. We request clarification on what you perceive as threatening about humanity. We have no hostile intentions toward any galactic species. The alien's 4 arms moved in what might have been a gesture of dismissal. Your species evolved as predators. Your history is filled with war. Your development of nuclear weapons occurred before your first spaceflight. Your fiction is filled with scenarios of conflict with alien life. The pattern is clear and concerning. All intelligent species must have evolutionary challenges they overcome, Taeyong argued. We've grown beyond our violent past. We seek peaceful cooperation. Your assessment of yourselves is irrelevant, the alien replied coldly. Council predictive models show a 78% probability that humans would achieve interstellar military capability within 50 standard years. The risk is unacceptable. As the conversation continued, Ju passed Taeyong a note. Earth's military forces were mobilizing, not with any hope of victory, but to protect civilians if possible. Scientists worldwide were analyzing every piece of data on the alien vessels, looking for any weakness. We request a longer adjustment period, Taeyong said, trying to keep his voice steady. Allow us to demonstrate our peaceful intentions. The alien conferred with others off-screen, then returned its attention to Taeyong. The Council will permit 1 additional Earth day for your species to prepare for oversight transition. This is our final accommodation. The transmission ended. Ju looked at Taeyong, fear evident in her eyes. What happens tomorrow? Either the end of human freedom, or the beginning of a war we can't win, he replied quietly. Throughout the next 24 hours, Earth changed. Ancient enemies put aside differences in the face of this existential threat. A hastily formed United Defense Initiative brought together the planet's best military minds and scientists. When Taeyong returned to the command center the following morning, he found it transformed. New equipment had been installed overnight. Military personnel from a dozen nations worked side by side. Commander, called out a young lieutenant, we've detected unusual activity in the alien fleet. Some smaller vessels are moving toward Earth's surface. Taeyong watched the tactical display as alien landing craft entered Earth's atmosphere. Where are they heading? Major cities worldwide. Beijing, New York, London, Moscow, Tokyo. They're spreading out across the globe. Taeyong's communicator buzzed. President Choi's message was brief. Humanity will not surrender. Stand ready. As he looked back at the observation window, Taeyong saw the first bright flashes of light in the sky, orbital weapons firing down at Earth. Humanity's final stand was about to begin. Engineer Hyunwoo Lee hadn't slept in 3 days. His lab coat was stained with coffee, and his eyes burned from staring at screens for too long. But none of that mattered now. What mattered was the small device hovering inside the test chamber. Fire the test weapon, he ordered. A technician pressed a button. The bright beam of energy shot across the chamber toward the floating device. Just before impact, a blue shimmer appeared, and the beam deflected harmlessly away. It works. Hyunwoo shouted, his exhausted face breaking into a wide grin. The room erupted in cheers. After 72 sleepless hours, they had done what should have been impossible. They had reverse-engineered the Galactic Council's shield technology. Hyun-woo leaned against a workbench, suddenly feeling the weight of his exhaustion. Next to him, his assistant Minna smiled. "How did you figure it out?" she asked. "It was the crashed scout ship," Hyun-woo explained, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep and too much coffee. "When we analyzed the shield generator, we noticed something odd about the power flow. It wasn't constant. It pulsed at specific frequencies. 3 weeks had passed since the Galactic Council had declared war on Earth. The first attacks had been devastating. Major cities around the world lay in ruins. Millions were dead, but humanity had not surrendered. Instead, something unexpected happened. Humans adapted. "We need to get this to the production facility immediately," Hyun-woo said, carefully removing the shield generator from the test chamber. "General Kang needs these for the front lines." Across the city, in the underground command center of the United Defense Initiative, General Minji Kang studied a holographic battlefield display. Red markers showed Council forces. Blue markers showed human resistance. There were far more red than blue, but something about the pattern caught her attention. "What's happening here?" she asked, pointing to a section where alien forces seemed to be moving more slowly than expected. Colonel Dae-hyun-jun, her chief tactician, smiled slightly. "That's the third time we've seen this pattern, General. The Council troops are struggling in our gravity. Their homeworlds must have lower gravity than Earth. Their soldiers tire quickly, and their movements are sluggish after extended deployment." Minji studied the display with renewed interest. "So we have a physical advantage." "Yes, General. And there's more." Dae-hyun brought up footage from a recent skirmish. "Their combat tactics are rigid, almost textbook. They don't improvise well. When our forces use unconventional methods, they struggle to adapt." Minji watched the video, where a small group of human soldiers used guerrilla tactics to outmaneuver a much larger alien force. The aliens had superior weapons and armor, but they moved in tight formations and seemed confused when humans didn't do the same. "They've never fought a war like this before," Minji realized. "They expected us to fight conventionally, and to lose quickly." "Exactly. And now they don't know what to do about us." Dae-hyun brought up another display. "We've managed to hold 3 critical defensive points that by all military logic should have fallen days ago." Minji nodded, feeling a small spark of hope for the first time since the war began. "Have the reports from Lee's engineering team arrived?" "Just came in," Dae-hyun said, passing her a tablet. "They've successfully reverse-engineered the Council shield technology." Minji read through the report quickly, her eyes widening. "This is incredible. How did they do this so quickly?" "That's the thing about humans," Dae-hyun said with pride. "When our backs are against the wall, we get creative." 2 days later, the first batch of human-made shield generators arrived at the new Seoul defensive line. The city, once South Korea's gleaming tech hub, was now a battleground. The eastern half remained under human control, while Council forces held the west. Captain Ji-hai Ryu stood on the rooftop of what had once been a university building, watching as engineers installed the new shield generators on a squadron of fighter jets. The planes were old models, nothing fancy, but they were about to become something the Council had never seen before. "Are you sure about this, Captain?" asked her wingman, Lieutenant Junho Kim. "These shields haven't been properly tested in combat conditions." "We don't have time for proper testing," Jai replied, checking her flight suit. "The Council is bringing in reinforcements tomorrow. This is our only chance to hit them while they're vulnerable." An hour later, 12 fighter jets rose into the sky above New Seoul. Each had been fitted with one of Hyun-woo's shield generators. Jai led the squadron, her heart pounding as they approached the enemy line. "Remember the plan," she said into her radio. "Fast and low. Don't give their targeting systems time to lock on. And if the shields fail, we're dead anyway," Junho finished. "So let's make this count." The jets screamed across the boundary line. entering enemy territory. Immediately, alien defense systems opened fire. Bright energy beams reached up from the ground, seeking the human aircraft. HFY held her breath as the first beam struck her jet. The shield flared blue, absorbing the impact. Her plane shuddered but kept flying. "Shields holding," she shouted. "Proceed with the attack run." The squadron dove toward the Council's main supply depot. Alien aircraft scrambled to intercept them, but they were too slow. The human pilots, born and trained in Earth's gravity, maneuvered with an agility the aliens couldn't match. HFY released her payload over the target. Explosions bloomed below. Around her, the rest of the squadron did the same. The Council's supply depot erupted in flames. "Pull up. Return to base," HFY ordered, banking her jet sharply away from the devastation below. As they raced back toward friendly territory, alien pursuers fired desperately at them. Several hits connected, but the shields held. Not a single human aircraft was lost. Back at the command center, General Minji watched the live feed with astonishment. "They did it," she whispered. The mission had been a gamble, using technology that should have taken decades to develop, deployed after just days of testing. "Ma'am," said a communications officer, "we're picking up unusual transmissions from the Council fleet in orbit." "Let me hear it," Minji ordered. The transmission was partially encrypted, but the translation software caught fragments. Unexpected resistance. Human adaptability factor underestimated. Request additional forces. Reassessment of threat level required. Minji allowed herself a small smile. "They're worried," she said. "They didn't expect us to reverse engineer their technology so quickly. They didn't expect us to exploit their weaknesses. They expected us to crumble. Instead, we've bloodied their nose," Dahyun said. News of the successful raid spread quickly through human resistance networks. For the first time since the war began, people dared to hope. If humans could adapt Council technology this quickly, what else might be possible? In his lab, Hyunwoo received the combat data from the shield generators. They had performed even better than expected. He immediately set his team to work on improvements. "The Council has been traveling between stars for thousands of years," he told his exhausted but determined team. "They think they've seen everything, but they've never seen humans before." 1 week later, the Battle of New Seoul became a turning point in the war. With improved shields and tactics designed to exploit the Council forces' weaknesses, human fighters broke through enemy lines that had seemed impenetrable. As reports of the victory reached the Council's command ship in orbit, the first cracks in their confidence began to appear. They had expected a short war against a primitive species. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before, one that seemed to get stronger with each defeat. Council scientist Jae-hyun Choi stood motionless at the edge of the observation deck. Though he wore the uniform of a Galactic Council senior researcher, his pale blue skin and 4 arms marked him as a Lumari, one of the Council's founding species. For 6 cycles, he had faithfully studied humanity for weaknesses. Now, he could not stop thinking about what he had witnessed 3 days ago. The memory played again in his mind. A human settlement under attack. Buildings crumbling. Council forces advancing. And then, the woman. She had emerged from a damaged structure, guiding 5 small children through the rubble. 4 Council soldiers had spotted them. The woman had seen there was no escape path for all of them. Without hesitation, she had pushed the children behind a fallen wall and run in the opposite direction, drawing the soldiers' fire. What had struck Jae-hyun most was realizing only one of the children had been hers. The others belonged to neighbors, to strangers. She had died for children not her own. No Lumari would do that. No species he knew would do that. "Dr. Choi, your presence is requested in the analysis chamber," said his assistant through the communication device on his wrist. Jae-hyun turned away from the view of Earth below. He had made his decision during the night cycle. He would not sleep well again if he continued to help destroy these strange, confounding beings. In the analysis chamber, 3 other council scientists waited, surrounded by data screens filled with human behavior patterns. "We've identified another anomaly," said Senior Analyst Tarek, a reptilian Vex with scales that shifted color with his mood. Currently, they were a troubled orange. "Look at this settlement." The main screen showed a human city under siege. Council bombardment had reduced many structures to rubble. Food and water were scarce. Yet in the middle of this devastation, humans had created a garden. Not for food, for flowers. And nearby, a wall was covered in colorful images, scenes of hope, of better days. "They create art during bombardment," Jae-hyun said quietly. "Beauty in the midst of destruction." "It makes no sense," Tarek hissed. "They waste precious energy and resources on non-survival activities." "Perhaps it is how they survive," Jae-hyun suggested. His colleagues looked at him with confusion. Jae-hyun felt the distance between himself and them growing. They would never understand what he now saw in humans. That night, Jae-hyun did something no council scientist had done in the history of the war. He deserted. Using access codes that would soon be discovered missing, he commandeered a small research vessel and set course for Earth's surface. The landing was rough. His ship, designed for scientific missions, not combat, took heavy damage from Earth's defense systems before he could broadcast his surrender. When he emerged, hands raised in the air as he had seen humans do, he was surrounded by weapons pointed at his alien form. "I seek asylum," he said through his translator. "I have information that can help Earth." 3 days later, Jae-hyun sat across from Director Jisoo Yoon of the United Defense Initiative in a secure underground facility. His 4 arms were unbound, but armed guards stood nearby, watching his every movement. "Why should we trust you?" Jisoo asked, her face showing no emotion. "Your people are trying to exterminate us." Jae-hyun's inner eyelids blinked, a sign of distress among Lumari. "I have been studying your species since the war began. What I've observed, it changed me." "Changed you how?" "Your species confounds our models," he explained, leaning forward. "You fight hardest when victory seems impossible. You create art during bombardment. You show mercy to enemies. The Council fears what it doesn't understand." Jisoo's expression remained neutral, but her eyes showed interest. "And you understand us?" "No," Jae-hyun admitted. "But I want to. And I believe you deserve the chance to survive." He placed a data device on the table between them. "This contains tactical information about Council forces, patrol routes, communication frequencies, shield modulation patterns." Jisoo didn't touch the device. "Why are you really here, Dr. Choi? Your people have killed millions of humans. Why the sudden change of heart?" Jae-hyun's 4 hands clasped together, a Lumari gesture of sincerity. "I saw a human mother sacrifice herself for children, not just her own. In that moment, I understood that your species possesses something mine does not. Something worth preserving." For the first time, Jisoo's expression softened slightly. "And what is that?" "I don't have the word for it in my language," Jae-hyun said, "but I believe humans call it compassion." 2,000 kilometers away, aboard the damaged human battleship Defiance, Captain Do-Yim Kwan knew nothing of the Council defector. His concerns were more immediate, staying alive. The Defiance drifted in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Once Earth's newest and most advanced warship, it was now a crippled vessel running on emergency power. 3 of its 5 engines were destroyed. The main weapon systems were offline. Half the crew was dead or wounded, and 7 Council warships were hunting them. "Status report," Do-Hyun ordered, his voice calm despite the situation. "Life support stable but limited to 24 hours, reported his first officer, Lieutenant Subin Park. Engines 3 and 5 operational at 40% capacity. Shields at 17%. Weapons, we have 2 missile tubes functional and a single-point defense laser." Do-Hyun nodded, studying the tactical display. The Council ships were spreading out, trying to box in the Defiance. Standard procedure. Predictable. "They think we're finished," he said quietly. "Aren't we, sir?" Subin asked, looking around at the damaged bridge with its flickering lights and injured crew. Do-hyun smiled slightly. "They don't understand humans very well, do they?" He turned to the navigation officer. "Plot a course directly toward the largest enemy vessel." Shocked faces turned toward him. "Sir," Subin questioned. "They expect us to run or surrender," Do-hyun explained. "We'll do neither. We're going to attack." The plan was audacious, perhaps insane. Using the asteroid belt for cover, the Defiance would approach the Council formation, then make a direct run at the command ship. At the last moment, they would fire their few remaining weapons and attempt a dangerous maneuver Do-hyun called the slingshot, using the enemy's gravity generators against them to gain momentum. "If this works," Subin said as they prepared, "we might damage one ship before the others destroy us." "If this works," Do-hyun corrected, "we'll create confusion in their formation and slip past them toward Mars, where our forces can assist us." The crew worked quickly, preparing for what might be their final battle. Some wrote messages to loved ones. Others checked weapons and systems one last time. A young engineer created a hand-drawn banner and hung it on the bridge wall. It showed the Defiance flying through stars, with words beneath, "Not today." Do-hyun saw it and nodded approval. Humans needed symbols, especially in dark times. When the moment came, the Defiance burst from behind a large asteroid, engines burning at full emergency power, heading straight for the largest Council warship. "They're powering weapons," Subin reported, tension in her voice. "Hold course," Do-hyun ordered. The Council ships began firing, energy beams slicing through space around the Defiance. The human ship's weakened shields flickered as impacts registered. "Shields at 9%, someone called out. "Closer," Do-hyun said, eyes fixed on the tactical display. The massive Council ship grew larger on the view screen. It was 10 times the size of the Defiance, bristling with weapon ports and surrounded by a shimmering energy field. "Now," Do-hyun shouted when they reached the calculated position. The Defiance fired its remaining missiles directly at the enemy ship's gravity generators, while simultaneously releasing specially modified probes, designed to emit the same energy signature as a human nuclear device. Confusion erupted in the Council formation. The larger ship diverted power to forward shields, expecting a nuclear impact. The sudden power shift created a momentary gravity well, exactly what Do-hyun had been counting on. "Full power to port engines. Roll ship 90 degrees, he ordered. The Defiance turned on its side and skimmed along the edge of the gravity distortion, gaining tremendous speed from the slingshot effect. It shot past the Council command ship before the alien vessel could realign its weapons. "Course to Mars," Do-hyun ordered calmly, though his heart pounded in his chest. "Maximum speed." Behind them, the Council ships fell into disarray. Their tight formation, designed to trap a fleeing prey, had not prepared them for prey that attacked. 2 Council vessels collided while attempting to pursue, further adding to the chaos. The Defiance, trailing debris and venting atmosphere from new hull breaches, limped toward Mars, damaged but alive. News of the encounter spread quickly through both human and Council communications. Humans celebrated the miracle of the belt, while Council commanders struggled to explain how a single damaged human ship had outmaneuvered 7 of their warships. 2 weeks later, in her office deep beneath what remained of Geneva, Director Ji-soo-yoon read the latest intelligence reports. Captain Kwan's victory had become legend. Council forces were growing hesitant, more cautious in their attacks. And now, with the information provided by Jae-in Choi, Earth's forces were beginning to target Council weaknesses with increasing success. "They don't understand us," she said to Jae-in, who had become a valuable advisor. "And that may be our greatest advantage." The Lumari scientist nodded. "The Council has conquered many worlds, but never one like Earth. Never a species like humans. You are unpredictable, and that terrifies them." Here's the expanded narrative in simple English. The massive spaceship hummed with tension as Chief Engineer Sungobai delivered the incredible news. The Sunfire drive was finally working, giving Earth's smaller fleet a critical advantage against the powerful Council forces. No longer would they be outgunned and outmaneuvered. Strategist Eunji Han had been planning this moment for months. Her brilliant tactical approach would change everything. Instead of fighting the Council's massive fleet head-on, she designed a strategy of quick, unpredictable attacks that would confuse and divide their enemy. The Battle of Mars became legendary almost instantly. Earth's ships darted between Council vessels like angry hornets, striking fast and vanishing before the larger ships could respond. Where the Council expected a traditional battle with clear lines and predictable movements, they found chaos. Han's tactics exploited every weakness. She split her smaller fleet into multiple groups, attacking from unexpected angles. Council commanders watched in shock as their perfect battle formation crumbled. Their massive warships, designed for direct confrontation, suddenly seemed clumsy and slow. The battle's images spread quickly across Council space through communication networks. What started as a military engagement soon became something more, a symbol of resistance. People on 12 different worlds watched the footage and saw something they had never seen before, a smaller force defeating a seemingly unbeatable enemy. Civilian protests erupted on multiple planets. The populations of the Lumari, Vex, and Ta worlds began questioning their government's military actions. Something was changing in the collective consciousness of the Council's citizens. In secret communications rooms, representatives from 3 Council species began reaching out to Earth. They saw an opportunity for change, a chance to break away from the old system. The Lumari, known for their diplomatic skills, were the first to make contact. The Vex, with their advanced communication technologies, provided secure channels. The Ta, always pragmatic, saw potential strategic advantages. Earth's leadership was cautious but hopeful. This unexpected turn of events could shift the entire balance of power in the galaxy. The Sunfire drive had given them technological superiority, and now diplomatic channels were opening. Sungoba looked out at the starfield, feeling a mix of pride and anticipation. The drive he had worked on for years was more than just an engineering achievement. It was a weapon of hope. Eunji Han stood nearby, her strategic mind already considering the next moves. The war was far from over, but for the first time, Earth had a real chance of survival. The Council would not give up easily, but the tide was turning. What had begun as a desperate struggle was transforming into a potential revolution. As stars gleamed outside the ship's windows, a new chapter in galactic history was being written. Earth, once considered a minor and insignificant planet, was now at the center of a potential system-wide transformation. The battle had changed everything, and everyone knew it. In the vast emptiness of space, Earth's final defense stood as a testament to human resilience. The odds were crushingly overwhelming. 5,000 Council warships against a mere 100 Earth vessels. Most would have considered this a hopeless situation, but not Earth's military leaders. Tactical officer Yonggi Shin studied the enemy's formation with intense concentration. His keen eye spotted something crucial. The Council fleet maintained an almost perfect symmetrical pattern. To many, this would seem impressive. To Shin, it was a critical vulnerability waiting to be exploited. Admiral Jihai Ryu was a strategic genius. She listened carefully to Shin's analysis and began crafting a plan that would turn mathematical precision into a fatal weakness. Her flanking maneuver was executed with breathtaking precision, cutting through the Council's seemingly impenetrable formation like a knife through paper. Just when the battle seemed to reach its most intense moment, something unexpected happened. Allied Lumari ships suddenly emerged from hyperspace, joining Earth's forces. The sudden appearance of these additional ships shattered the Council's unified front. The battle that everyone expected would be Earth's final stand became something entirely different. What began as a potential extinction event transformed into a moment of galactic transformation. The Council's overwhelming force crumbled under the combined strategic brilliance of human commanders and their unexpected allies. In the aftermath, as representatives from various species gathered to form the new Galactic Alliance, Ambassador Minjin Park delivered a speech that would be remembered for generations. Standing before beings from across the galaxy, he spoke not of victory, but of understanding. "We came to the stars hoping to find friends," Park said, his voice steady and clear. "Instead, we found fear. But today we've replaced that fear with understanding. Humanity stands ready to share our greatest strength with the galaxy, our endless capacity to hope." The war was over. A new era was beginning. Humanity had not just survived. They had fundamentally changed the dynamics of galactic politics. The 100 ships that faced 5,000 had become a symbol of something greater, proof that courage, strategy, and hope could overcome seemingly impossible odds.